Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Saturday Mindfulness Workshop. Beautiful morning here in Boston. Finally getting some nice warm weather here. I don't know about you, but I'm done with the cold weather, that's for sure. So we'll open up today's practice with a short 5-minute sit. So if you would find your comfortable position, either in the full lotus, half lotus, quarter lotus, seiza, or if you're sitting in a chair, just make sure your feet are flat on the floor and your back is straight. And we'll practice 5 minutes, just mindful breathing practice. And just sitting and observing the thoughts as they arise. We're not going to try and stop our thoughts, okay? We're just going to observe them as they arise. As any thought arises, whether it's, my right foot is tingling, just notice that thought and come back to your breathing. Relaxing the shoulders, feeling the hara, and breathing from the belly. Okay, so full awareness of the breath, full awareness of the sensations in the body, full awareness of the thoughts as they arise, not clinging or thinking on those thoughts, just returning to the breath. All right? When we finish that first round of sitting, we'll have our discussion on today's subject, which is the subject of attachment. Attachment and how attachment relates to anxiety, suffering, discontent, those kinds of things that we all deal with from time to time. We'll also talk about how mindfulness plays a role in the relief of that suffering, or those things of discontent or anxiety or whatever they are. So get into your position, and we'll begin with our short sitting. Okay. We want to do a 5-minute sit. 5-minute sit. Here we go. All right. Moving the body now from left to right, just tick-tock, pendulum, like a metronome, coming into the center, straightening, lengthening the spine, settling into the middle, eyes resting lightly in front of you, breathing deeply in and out. Quick scan of your body, notice where there's any tension being held onto. And with every out breath, just release that tension down into the cushion. So it's great to be with you guys again today on Saturday. Find a comfortable position to be in for our chat. So the question is, why are we actually here practicing mindfulness? And really, there are about four things that come to mind. First of all, we know that there is stuff going on out there. There is people who are, you can see them, they're unhappy or they're homeless or they're full of anxiety or stress or, there's all sorts of things going on for them. And we recognize those things as, as suffering or anxiety or depression or unhappiness or just a general sense of malaise or whatever it might be. Fear of what's next. Then we realize that those things are happening in ourselves too, from time to time, to a greater or lesser degree than others perhaps, but we recognize that they're happening. And then we look for ways to try to, relieve those uncomfortable experiences. So we try all sorts of things, whether it's going to the opera or watching a movie or drinking a scotch or whatever it is. We look to mindfulness even to help. And then finally, we realize one of two things. We either realize what we're doing is not working, or we realize this has the potential to work. I'm seeing some results. Okay. So they're the four sort of reasons why we might decide to pursue some mindfulness practice. And I say practice because it is a practice. It's not something you just dip into once in a while to feel good and get out of it again, because, that isn't what true mindfulness is. So then what is mindfulness then? What is true mindfulness practice or mindfulness in general? For me, I think it's the freedom from being hooked. It's the freedom to see reality as it really is, which is a really hard thing to do because we have all of these filters that we view everything through, our own filters. You know what I mean? So those filters are, I think, what we call the self. They're the things that make up our sense of being Tyrone or Benoit or Al or John, right? They're the things that make you feel like you. And those filters are what we observe the world through. But the question is, are we seeing through a very clear window, or are we seeing through a window that has some elements on it which disturb our view of what is really going on? And that's what we're here to talk about today, is how the idea of ourselves, the individual person who has all of these feelings inside of a body and thoughts inside of a brain and concepts, and has been educated and has certain formulated ideas, we call that the self, okay? And this brain that we have, this mind that we have in the self, processes all of the things that are going on for us, so that we use the brain to filter and to process what's going on so that we can interpret it. And we interpret it, like I said, based on our own accumulation of experiences, knowledge, education, and all of that stuff. So we see, and feel aligned with people who have similar experiences or filter the world in a similar way to us. That's just how we tend to, as humans, we tend to group together based on like-mindedness, or similar experiences. And then we have these ideas, concepts, learnings, and whatnot that go to making you you, and you get hooked on those. And anything that comes along that challenges your sense of solidity, the sense that everything that I understand to be me is real, and it gets, when anything challenges that, it creates a lot of discomfort, a lot of anxiety and fear. A lot of anxiety and fear of death, because when we realize that nothing is permanent, it's kind of terrifying in a sense. So what we're living through now with the COVID-19 pandemic is constantly confronting us with our own impermanence and with death. We don't like to think about death too much. And in our culture, we generally don't. But freedom from being hooked, this is mindfulness. Freedom from being hooked on the notions, learnings, ideas that come about from all of the accumulations that we've had in our life, that we pack into a bag of skin that we call us, or we call me. Okay? You look in the mirror and you see yourself in the mirror, and you think, oh, that's Danielle. That's Daniele. That's him. Right? And everything that you think of him is just an accumulation of all of those experiences. So so mindfulness is a key, or a way of becoming unhooked from all of the assumptions that you have as yourself, to the benefit of being able to live actually really in what's really happening in the present moment. You can't live in the present moment when you're hooked on a concept that is not actually appropriate or real or actually fitting into what's happening right now. Okay? You cannot be yourself, your true self, if you're stuck in a place where you're feeling solid in your personality and in your ego self through the accumulation of your learnings and stuff that's associated with your body or your feelings and all of that. What we learn from mindfulness meditation is that these things are happening all around us and inside of us, but yet there is a place where we can be, where somehow we're just experiencing those without allowing them to hook us in and cause a domino effect where we get those feelings of anxiety when things don't match up the way we expect them to be. So that gives rise to another question, which is, can you be hooked on mindfulness? Is mindfulness practice just another attachment, or another hook, or another glass of scotch, or another joint, or another movie that you get lost in, or a novel? Is it just another thing to escape the self? Right? And the question is, it can be. It certainly can be. And I think that it depends on how you practice it. If you're practicing mindfulness meditation as a panacea or a way of running away from what's really going on, well, then it's just another attachment. So that's something requires deep thought, or at least deep observation, which is what goes on in sitting practice. So ask yourself that question, or observe your own feelings and thoughts and ideas, and see for yourself, is mindfulness just another crutch or another hook or another attachment for you? So it's not really doing the work. The work is a discipline of sitting properly, bringing your best self to the cushion, being fully present in the moment without clinging to any idea of what it's supposed to be about, and just being with the breath. So we cling to four kind of things, or well, three main things. We cling, first of all, to the notion that we have a body. Well, we do have a body. Obviously, we have a body. But we cling to the idea that we have a body that we call me. This is me. The skin on my hands, the blood in my body, the thoughts in my mind. This body is me. Okay? And like I said, Al looks in the mirror and he sees Al looking back and he thinks that's Al. Okay? And we sometimes fall in love with our body. We can have like a giant crush on our own body and be really, egotistical and become one of these crazy people that are just so caught up in how their body looks and how their physicality looks. Okay, that it really becomes a kind of a neurotic relationship with the body, right? Neurotic. And it's equally neurotic then to have self-loathing, to feel that I hate my body. See, they're the two extremes, right? You have this giant crush in your body, you love yourself, or you have this self-loathing, you hate yourself. They're the neurotic relationships with the body. What we're looking for is the middle way, where we have a balanced relationship with the body. So mindfulness practice, and the first object of mindfulness meditation is the body. As I taught you before, there are four: the body, the feelings, the mind or the consciousness, and the phenomenon or the objects of the mind, independently arising objects. So we're looking for balance in those things. So in regards to the body, we're looking for a balanced relationship with the body where we don't judge ourselves. We're free to be the body that we are. And we're equally free to realize that we're not the body. This body is impermanent. It's going to go away. So knowing that, we have to have a different relationship with it. Maybe we can be a bit kinder to ourselves and realize that the body has limitations. It may not be the body we want, but mindfulness practice will give us the ability to sit more comfortably within ourselves without going to the extremes. Self-love of the body, self-loathing of the body. Okay, so this is the first object of practice. So sit for a moment comfortably, and you can choose to take a formal posture or not. But what we're going to do is just for a short moment, precisely 3 minutes, we're going to do a breathing practice. And just practicing breathing in and breathing out to the hara. And noticing the full sense of being in your body. So don't focus on any one part of the body. Focus on the full body. Focus on a sense of being fully there, fully present on the cushion in your body. If that includes some discomfort for you, then that's absolutely fine. Include the sense of discomfort. Okay? If it includes feelings of strength and relaxation, then include that. But don't judge them, and don't make them the object of your meditation. The object of your meditation is the breath and the full awareness of the body. Okay? So, sit straight. Taking a deep breath in now, and let it out. Wide awake and fully present, fully in your body. Breathing in, you're aware of your body. Breathing out, you're aware of your entire body. So be comfortable now. So, what is the next point of attachment? So we just talked about attachment to the body in ways that are not helpful. We could say they're neurotic ways. And there's equally neurotic ways of being attached to the self through the sense of feelings. So we have all these feelings, whatever they might be. And of course, these feelings that we have, they cannot be experienced without the body. That's why the body is the first gate or foundation of mindfulness, or the first object of our meditation. So the feelings arise, and we have all kinds of feelings. We can have feelings of happiness, sadness, emotions of fear and excitement, or whatever those feelings are that come up. And some of those feelings that come up for us, we're not even able to be aware of them. They're kind of subcutaneous, or, down underneath, where we're not even aware of what's happening, but somehow it's percolating up and affecting our lives. So these emotions and feelings that we have, we also identify with those. And we also become attached to those, okay? So we can be attached to really nice feelings. That's an obvious thing, right? You can be attached to feeling really great. So for instance, having a neurotic relationship with pleasure is an obvious distortion of a balanced relationship with your feelings. Equally so, having a distorted attraction or attachment to pain or discomfort is also obviously a aberration of a balanced relationship with the feelings. But as we cling to these things, we include those feelings and those cycles of pleasure and pain or discomfort and happiness, and we get attached to those cycles, okay, of moving from one to the next. And we identify those feelings, again, very strongly with the sense of being me, Tyrone, or Benoit, or Mayumi. Okay, you have those feelings, and those feelings are familiar to you. They're very familiar to you, whether they're, like I said, happy feelings, sad feelings, whatever the hell they are, they're going to be very familiar to you. You've had them forever. And as such, you closely identify those feelings with you, that sense of you. So that brings with it its own problems. And we know that not just anxiety and depression as feelings are a problem, but being hooked on feelings is a problem. And that's a deeper question, is what feelings are you hooked on? A lot of people don't realize it, but you can be hooked on bad feelings, on feeling bad. Some people, you've heard the old expression, wallowing in your own self-pity. Well, there's an example of being hooked on a feeling of self-pity. Okay, so that's an attachment. And what we're learning here is the attachment to those things, whether it's the body, the distorted views of the body, or attachment to feelings, we know that those are giving rise to these kinds of unhappinesses or discomforts that we've discussed. So in underlying the hooked idea, or the attachment idea, underlying that within the body or in the feelings, is the sense of self again. The sense that in order to be alive, we feel like we have to have a self. We have to identify as Benoit or Tyrone or Al or John. We feel that we are very wedded and attached to that sense of self. Otherwise, there's a fear of what is it then if this is not it? What is it? We're afraid of that. We're afraid to answer that question. That's why for many people, true mindfulness practice can be really scary. I remember I brought my cousin and her husband to a weekend mindfulness training many, many years ago with a very famous teacher named Claude Anshin Thomas, who's a great meditation teacher, former Vietnam veteran. I think I've spoke about him before, but he's very straightforward and very direct in the way he talks about being attached to the feelings and the body, okay, and how fake it is, that really there is no self to be attached to the body and the feelings in this way, and not in the way we think it is. Well, within 5 minutes of that discussion, my cousin and her husband stood up in the middle of when there was like I don't know, 50 or 60 people in the meditation hall. The two of them stood up and practically ran out the door. And Anshin Thomas looked up and he just kind of said, he said, you see, it's hard to get unhooked, and it's terrifying to be unhooked. But it's the liberation it's the freedom from being hooked that we're looking for with mindfulness practice. That's the essence of it. Not being hooked, not relating to ourselves, in other words, our body and our feelings in a neurotic way. It's not that we're trying to get rid of them. No, we're not trying to get rid of the body. We're not trying to get rid of feelings. We're trying to eliminate the neurotic relationship that we have with those. Okay? That's the idea of mindfulness meditation. So, practicing awareness of feelings is the second object of mindfulness, or the second gate, or sometimes called the second foundation of mindfulness practice. So take a position now. You can take the formal posture or just sit comfortably whatever way you wish. And we'll do a 3-minute practice of breathing. Breathing mindfully, we'll know that we have feelings arising within us. And breathing out mindfully, we'll know those feelings have a name. So breathing in, we'll say to ourselves, oh, I notice a sense of anxiety in my chest. Breathing out, I'll let that anxiety drift down into the hara and disappear with the breath. It will do so by itself. We don't have to make it do that. Okay? So that will be our practice for the next 3 minutes, observing the feelings, naming them, and just coming back to the breath. Okay? All right, so let's practice. Settle in, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the head and neck, chin tucked. Breathing in and let it out. Now, don't go looking for feelings, okay? Just breathe. If feelings arise, if they arise, just note them and return to the breath. Okay, so let's move on to the third attachment or clinging or addiction. The third is the clinging to the mind, clinging to the sense of all the accumulation that we have built up over the years and invested in ourselves with education and books and studying and all of the concepts that we've built around our lives, whether they're political or social or scientific or religious. So the mind can't exist again without a body, okay? So remember that we start with the study of the body or the object of the body as our mindfulness, moving to the feelings and then to the mind, which has to be the thing that observes these other things. And it's the great store of all of our knowledge. And again, we identify ourselves really strongly with the mind. Like I said, all the investment of time we put into culturing our mind, working with our mind, educating ourselves, having ideas, having concepts. And we cling onto those like a life raft. Try to change a person's beliefs and ideas, and you're up for a fight in most cases. People hold on to those so hard. Because again, the mind is the most, I suppose, easy thing to be attached to because it's the thing that reflects on the body and the feelings in order to fully form the sense of Benoit or Hania or Al. So think of the mind, I guess it's in sort of computing terms, all right? In computing terms, the mind is the general processor or the central processor. So it is the filter through which everything gets passed through, and we make a judgment on everything using the mind. So we determine whether it's good or it's bad, basically, whether we accept it or we reject it, whatever it is. We use the mind for that. And all of those decisions reinforce our sense of permanent self. Okay, the stronger the mind, the more educated the mind, the more vested in the mind that we are, the larger, the bigger addiction we have to our sense of self. So mindfulness practice is not about getting rid of the mind, and it's not about not learning anything, and it's not about any of that. It's about not having a neurotic relationship with the objects of the mind, the things of our mind. Now, when I say a neurotic relationship, I mean being addicted to being I'm a great, intellectual, or I'm this or that or the other, whatever it is. Our mind and our addiction to everything that we feel is a formation of ourselves through our mind brings with it a lot of anxiety and pain eventually. So what we're really trying to do is recognize this accumulation of concepts, ideas, learnings, and of course, in many cases, beliefs. What we're really trying to figure out is that us? Is that truly who I am, or are they something else? They're valid, but are they bringing me happiness or are they bringing me suffering? If people remove those from me, am I feeling angry or am I okay with that? Or if I remove all of that, who is left behind? What is it that has all of that? You see? So the mind is the one element that really can bring us astray in a major way. The mind is the thing that sends us down different rabbit holes because those thoughts that come up are, like I explained before, they can be like a domino popping up, and all of a sudden behind that domino there's 1,000 other dominoes, and you pay attention to that domino, and boom, you've got a chain reaction of thoughts in the mind that hook you in. Okay, and then you have conclusions about that process, and you use your central processor, the mind, to wash all of those thoughts through the filter of everything that you've accumulated. And out the other end comes an answer, which is basically Benoit's world. Okay? That's your world. That's the way you see the world, through your mind. Okay? The great Zen master Taekwondo Soho, who was a teacher to many of the great Japanese sword fighters. He says, it is the very mind itself that leads the mind astray. Of the mind, do not be mindless. So he's saying to us, don't let that domino effect happen. Be aware of what's happening in the mind. Be aware of where the hooks are and the traps are, using the mind. It seems a contradiction, or maybe it's even seems impossible, but we'll get to that in a moment. But now we're going to do another 3-minute practice, focusing on thoughts and the mind. So we're separating now thoughts from feelings, from bodily sensations. Okay? We're now working only with thoughts that arise. And when I say thoughts, I mean thoughts such as, I have no clue what he's talking about. All right? Or I'm sure that, I could write that essay a little bit better, or whatever the thought is. Okay? Just see the thought in your mind. Don't let it hook you. Return to the breath. Put a name on it. Return to the breath. Okay? So let's practice that now for 3 minutes. Sit. Get comfortable. Sit straight. Fill your heart with air. Breathing deeply. Just touch the thumbs very lightly, like a piece of paper is between them. Breathing in and breathing out. Okay, so let's move on now to talking about how these three objects come together: the body, the feelings, the mind, and then solidify into the outer world and become this entity called the self, interacting with the world with a strong sense of being who that self is, being fully attached and fully clinging on to that sense of self, the body, the mind, the feelings, and interacting in the world as a self person, like a person who feels distinct and individual from everyone else. And as such, is serving one's own self-interest more than the interests of the group, or is causing harm to other groups that don't fit into our view of who we are through our clinging on to the body, the feelings, and the mind of this thing called the self. And all the ensuing chaos that comes about as a result of walking through the world as this attached, clinging on mess of bag of skin and blood, right? Called Benoit, called John, called Daniele, called Morgan, called Tyrone, all right? All of us feel like, we're somehow separate from everyone else. And you think about all the chaos and all the trouble that that causes is really a question to ask yourself, well, is there any value in it, So this fourth gate or object of mindfulness, called the phenomena, is either a negative thing or a positive thing, depending on how you treat it. So we either live in the chaos of attachment, where the only respite that we can get is oblivion. We search for a way to get out of it because it's overwhelming in one sense. So we have all these subterfuges that we get to. And then we go full circle into what we call samsara or maya, where we go from the body to the feelings to the mind and searching ways of getting out of those things in order to find some peace. Or we use the chaos and we stand back from it and we observe what's going on with this chaos, what's going on with all these attachments, what's going on with this sense of self that isn't actually solid, isn't actually real. It's like, for instance, you could be sitting on the cushion and observing the mind and watching, impartially observing the sensations of the body, the breath, the feelings that come up, knowing what they are, being able to name them. The mind, thoughts that keep arising, concepts, right? So we sit in awareness and we observe those things, like as if we're in a room where there's a bunch of little mouse holes around, little mouse holes. And we see the mouse come up here and there, and they run across the floor and they're scurrying around. Okay? So we're sitting here watching that going on. Okay? This phenomena happening right before our eyes. But we don't get hooked, right? We don't get dragged into it. Okay? Another way of describing it is like the general on the horse. I've used that analogy before. Sitting on horseback on the hill, his full presence, his full proud self, looking down into the valley at his army and the opponent's army. And he's observing, strategizing, observing, removed, yet fully present. So we call this the fourth object of mindfulness. Sitting with all of it, sitting with the other three objects, fully interacting with one another. Okay? So this is the fourth gate to mindfulness. So let's sit again straight, find your posture, and we'll sit for a final 3 minutes, observing the breath, but sitting like a general on the horse, looking out into the field, observing what's happening. Or if you prefer the little mice analogy, seeing what's going on in the mind, the feelings of the body, the feelings of the heart, or the emotions, and then the objects of the mind, things that arise within the mind. Okay? Just observing, not getting sucked in. Okay? Just observing, coming back to the breath. All right? Sit straight. Loosen the shoulders, straighten the back, tuck the chin. Take a deep breath in and relax. Stay fully present. All right. Just to final wrap up. I know I've been focusing a lot on these four objects of mindfulness, but really, in terms of your own practice and what you are going to do with it, you have to be aware of the model that I use. So you can choose to ignore this methodology and practice your own way. People have to find their own way with their own meditation. I just encourage you to make sure that whatever way you choose isn't just another way of getting hooked or another way of escaping reality. Okay. What I'm looking for, what I'm really doing here is I'm sharing with you a piece of my journey and what I try to get out of my mindfulness practice. This is how I've based my practice for a very long time, and it's helped me a lot. It's helped me through a lot of hard times, as well as issues around attachments myself. So I think that it's a very useful and a very powerful practice if you put it into use. But it's just important to note the difference between what is true mindfulness practice versus what is just seeking a panacea or running away from reality. Okay, so that's it for today. We've run 3 minutes over again. I'm sorry about that. If you'd like to leave now, that's great. Feel free to go. I can hang on for a minute if anyone has any questions. Feel free to ask. But let's take this moment to put our hands together and a deep bow. Gasho. Take your practice off the cushion and stay mindful for the rest of the weekend. I'll see you guys next week.